The earlier you get started, the easier it is to make a change and the easier it is to make a sustained change. And so prevention should be the name of the game here. When you have that initial idea that you want to make a change is the best time to get started, right? The earlier folks can get started on the path to a healthy relationship with alcohol, the easier it is ultimately to find balance.
Good morning. Welcome to another episode of How's My Drinking? My name is Arin and Marcela Cabe.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Good morning. How you doing, Marcela?
I am great. How are you doing today?
Good. California's getting a bit cold, so not bad at all. I'm loving it. So today's episode is going to be a good one. I'm actually excited for our guest today. We have Nick Allen joining us, who's the CEO of Sunnyside. Hi, Nick.
Hey, really happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Definitely. Thanks for being here. So Nick, we wanted to kind of take some time here, ask some questions about Sunnyside. I think it's something definitely our listeners would love to know more about. So I wanted to kind of just start off the podcast, just maybe, telling a little bit about yourself and what you do at Sunnyside now.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Nick Allen. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Sunnyside. At Sunnyside, our mission is to help anyone who regularly drinks alcohol connect the dots between healthier drinking habits and a happier and more fulfilling life. The thing that really makes Sunnyside different when you kind of look at the ecosystem of options out there for people looking to change their relationship with alcohol is a lot of the services are built to help kind of problem drinkers on the path to complete sobriety. And I put problem drinkers in quotes because it is such kind of a broad and ambiguous kind of terminology. But really they're about kind of sobriety as the end goal. And what Sunnyside is really built for is folks who have that inkling that they're looking to make a change to their drinking habits, but who are not necessarily open or ready yet for the decision to go completely sober. And so we take an approach that's focused on kind of balance and mindfulness and bringing awareness to habits around alcohol without necessarily pushing for the kind of one-size-fits-all solution of sobriety. We come from a place where we have the utmost respect for the decision to go sober. It's, of course, one of the most important choices for many people who are kind of starting to reevaluate their relationship with alcohol. But for many, it's just not quite the right fit. And we wanted to provide an option for people to get started and to manage their drinking, even if, going to complete abstinence is not the right fit at this time in people's lives, which for many is the case.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, and Nick, that was really great. And it sounds like just a really great platform for people. So my question to you is what made you come up with Sunnyside? What's the backstory behind it?
Yeah, definitely. So, at Sunnyside, our mission is to make managing alcohol consumption as common and socially accepted as managing diet and exercise and mindfulness as components of our proactive wellness routines. And the story of Sunnyside actually kind of comes from my own personal experience in looking for a solution like that. I had great success managing things like, diet by tracking my calorie intake and nutrition and macros, great success with technology enabling my fitness journey, helping me to, figure out what to do at the gym and kind of how to stay active and fit, and even mindfulness with kind of a meditation practice and being proactive in kind of managing my mental health. I'm also someone who tends to drink quite a bit. I clearly have kind of proclivities towards alcohol. And if I'm not careful, drinking can sneak up on me as kind of a larger part of my health journey than I necessarily want. And so I was in a place where I was drinking more than I felt comfortable with. And I sought out a tool to kind of help me manage drinking in the same way that I'd been successful in managing these other areas of my health. And I was really surprised to find that basically, there were all these apps and services that were kind of branded with sobriety and really built for this one-size-fits-all pathway, and yet very little out there to help me track and manage and set goals around drinking without zero as kind of the necessary end goal. And so that kind of was a light bulb moment for me that, I figured I wasn't the only person that wanted to, sustainably cut back on my consumption without necessarily moving towards complete zero. And so in that realization, it kind of, became apparent to me that there are likely millions of people who would be open to changing their relationship with alcohol if presented with different options that didn't require this kind of all or nothing kind of ultimatum approach.
Yeah.
And so, I'm someone who actually comes from a background where alcohol played a really big factor in my kind of family life. And in my both of my parents are actually in recovery, and they have been for the last 30 plus years. And that their decision to go sober was an incredibly important inflection point in my own life, because they pulled themselves up from kind of a rock bottom moment and, recovered. And it was incredibly profound, the impact that had on my family, on my sister, and on my life, having parents who saved themselves ultimately from the throes of a pretty heavy addiction. And my belief is that we can prevent a lot of those most negative consequences of unchecked alcohol use by helping people get started earlier and not waiting until there's a crisis before we do something about it. And so, my own family history, my own personal habits and proclivities around alcohol, coupled with this realization that there's this massive gap in the market for people who are looking to make a change that doesn't necessarily require sobriety, ultimately led me to build a little tool for myself that was really based around kind of planning my drinks ahead of time, tracking my consumption, and then kind of monitoring my progress over time to understand the impact of healthier drinking on other areas of my life. And that little tool became something that I put out in the world on Reddit. And a lot of people gravitated towards this idea that there need to be ways to be more balanced and healthy with alcohol that don't require the label of alcoholic and this kind of one-size-fits-all path to complete sobriety.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it reminds me of, like you said early on with the gym and everything, it's kind of like a fitness pal app, right? Right. So I think a lot of those things are habit forming in a sense, because you have someone essentially monitoring, rather than be a physical individual, right? You have that app that potentially can monitor your progression and kind of show you how your habits are changing and you're doing well. So it's kind of that pat on the back. So yeah, that's definitely interesting. And I love how you're kind of saying it too, because I think we talked about this on our first podcast where we kind of mentioned it, where people have always kind of been, said, okay, we need to fully quit drinking. It hasn't really been, okay, we need to do some level of moderation. And that's great, because the app could help people in that. And like you said, it doesn't have to be someone that wants to fully stop, right? It could just be someone that doesn't even maybe have a problem. It's early on. It could even be someone at the gym that wants to become healthier. I mean, that's one thing too. If you're working out, you want to maybe lower alcohol consumption because it's empty calories.
Yeah. And I've been thinking a lot about this, in the analogy of kind of weight loss, where it kind of feels like, if in the weight loss world, we were to wait until people got diabetes before we started to kind of treat their weight condition, right? And it feels really similar in alcohol, where it's like, we wait until you're severely on the spectrum of alcohol use disorder before we start engaging with you and start building healthy habits. And so our whole belief is if we can get you started, as soon as you have that inkling that you want to make a change, and not wait the decade for it to kind of get worse and become a rock bottom moment, we have an opportunity to save tons of people's lives and to improve the quality of life of millions, rather than waiting, for it to become a problem or to become a condition, right, in the kind of healthcare world.
Yeah, definitely.
To mention and just bring up what you said, that I think has a huge impact, and it's so important that you watch your parents make this change, and that had such an impact on you. I definitely connect to that, because I really quit drinking because of what it was doing to my kids, and I think that's such an important thing. It's not just for you, it's for the people around you.
Yeah, and it's such an amazing and empowering decision to decide that alcohol doesn't have a place in your life. And I too realized that I have some of the same tendencies that my parents did, where if I'm not careful, I know that this is something that can sneak up on me. And so I'm proud so far that I've found Sunnyside and have kind of found this path that's allowed me to create sustainable habits around alcohol that I feel at peace with and comfortable with, and that allow me to live the life as a dad and as a husband and as kind of a participant in the world that I'm really proud of. But even me, I don't, cancel out the idea that eventually the decision to go completely sober might be the right one for me, because I know some of the tendencies, and I know that this can be a condition that gets worse, the longer you wait to treat it. And so even for myself, someone who's proudly a champion of the moderation movement, I recognize that sobriety is still very much an open door for me in the future. And I think the key for us, and for my own journey and for the journey that we're supporting of the, tens of thousands of people that are using Sunnyside today, is everyone has a unique path. And our mission is to support your path and support your personalized journey, whatever that might mean, through any ups and downs, through the decision to try to moderate, to maybe, realize that moderation isn't working and ultimately decide to go sober. All of those are so respectable as pathways and as decisions. And for us, it's about meeting you where you are and helping you get where you want to be, and not necessarily trying to push you towards something that you're not quite ready yet, until you find that motivation, until you realize kind of what the right fit is for alcohol in your life. And for many people, that fit is 0, right?
Yeah.
And that's important too.
I mean, so kind of like with that, we talked a little bit about like individuals as far as an audience would be kind of people that want to do moderation, right? What's the ideal demographic for Sunnyside? I mean, is it just primarily moderation? Is there a particular type of individual that you feel does better using Sunnyside as a program to help?
Yeah, so we work with members across this spectrum of kind of moderate to light drinkers all the way through to pretty heavy drinkers in terms of kind of self-reported weekly consumption. Our sweet spot is probably folks that are in that kind of, 14 to 35 drinks a week, which is, considered heavy, but they're, certainly not the heaviest in terms of kind of overall consumption. But the key thing for us is ultimately we want to work with people who have that first inkling that like, hey, maybe I want to make a change to the role that alcohol plays in my life. And so that could be waking up with a really bad hangover after a rough night out. It could be, a regrettable decision that you made while drinking that you're kind of trying to process. It might be, a relationship that's important to you that's kind of felt less healthy as a result of kind of alcohol. When you have that initial idea that you want to make a change is the best time to get started, right? The earlier folks can get started on the path to a healthier relationship with alcohol, the easier it is ultimately to find balance and to avoid those most negative consequences. And so if you've ever had that thought that, hey, I want to change my relationship with alcohol, we are a great place to start. And we like to think of ourselves as kind of like this bright, broad, welcoming front door to help you get started. And then it may turn out that our service is perfect and the sustained moderation is doable for you. Or it might turn out that you try to moderate with us for a while, you realize that it's not working, and we help you kind of find the next step of care, whether that's tools like RIA Health or kind of higher touch peer support. There's lots of ways to step up if you decide that that's what you need.
Yeah, I want to actually touch on something else too on that, kind of maybe give the audience a little bit more of an understanding of how the app works, right? Because like someone could be in AA right now, right? Which they're in recovery, and the app might not make much sense to them. Because when you kind of speak on moderation, I know about the app, and the reason you're probably saying that is because it's probably built more for individuals that have been drinking, right? Because they're going to be trying to use the app to kind of control them. So maybe if you could talk a little bit more about the app and how does that work when someone signs up? So what do they do within it?
Yeah, so Sunnyside is purpose-built for helping people who are currently drinking reduce their overall consumption with evidence-based strategies that are kind of proven ultimately to support sustained reduction of consumption. And so the main way that the product works, we'll have you go through a onboarding quiz experience where we ask a little bit about kind of where you are, get a sense of your current habits, your goals, a little bit about your demographics to inform kind of the recommendations that we're making. And then once you filled out that questionnaire, we basically put you into a weekly cycle of planning, tracking, and progress. So basically every Sunday, our members come together, they look forward to the week ahead, and they create an intention for themselves around kind of when they plan to drink, when they plan to not drink. And they basically set up this accountability roadmap. It's not us telling them what to do, but they're saying, I don't want to drink Monday through Thursday, and I'm going to give myself an allocation for Friday and Saturday, and then I'll go back to being dry on Sunday, right? So they're looking at kind of creating a plan for themselves that they feel good about. From there, we basically, once the plan is in place, we work with our members through a series of daily nudges. We remind them about the goals that they have each day. It's not us saying like, hey, you shouldn't drink today. It's us reminding you that, hey, your intention for today was not to drink, so let's work together to stay on top of that goal. And then kind of reminders the next day about kind of logging your consumption for the previous day and kind of keeping a record of how you did relative to the plan that you kind of made for yourself. So there's this loop of kind of create a plan, set goals, and then through daily nudges around kind of work to stay accountable to your own intentions that you set for yourself. And then every day that you're logging your consumption, you're basically getting an overview of the progress that you're making relative to your baseline to understand how these healthier habits are impacting things like money saved, empty calories avoided, improved quality of sleep. So you're getting this kind of holistic picture of how drinking less and drinking more mindfully is giving you more in the areas of your life that you really care about. So there's this kind of like quantitative part, which is, set your goals, track on a daily basis, see your progress. And then the most important part, I think, actually, is the peer support layer that we've built on the other side. So there's this member-to-member connection experience that embodies itself as a community. We have these daily reflections where members are kind of journaling together, reflecting on their habits, building their toolkits, supporting one another towards reaching their goals. We have this challenge experience, so you can join a 30-day challenge for an added layer of accountability, which might be going completely dry or, cutting back your drinks by half, giving different ways to kind of reset and push a little further, again, in collaboration with other members working towards the same goals. And then finally, we have this kind of like peer support coaching layer where we have peers that have graduated from the Sunnyside program who are available one-on-one via text message when you need a little bit of extra advice or encouragement. We're not giving medical advice. These aren't therapists, but they are people that have lived the experience of cutting back and building a more mindful relationship with alcohol. And they come from this place of deep empathy to support, encourage, and provide advice from their own backgrounds and experience. And it's just so powerful to have someone just a text message away to be there for you, a human, when you need it, for that little extra nudge, that little extra encouragement, and kind of push in the right direction. So those are kind of the pieces, and they work together really well to create a system that has been now demonstrated to be highly effective in helping people reduce their consumption and sustain those gains for the long term.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it really does. Like you built a very comprehensive approach to it all. Nick, based on that, like what are the benefits of somebody using Sunnyside as opposed to other apps out there that help you track your drinks?
Yeah, so we are way more than a tracker. And I think it goes towards some of that stuff that I was just talking about around the community and the human-to-human connection. Especially in this world of AI, I think there's this kind of incentive to like push everything towards an AI experience, right? And I think what makes Sunnyside really different is the humans behind the text messages.
Yes.
Some of our messages are automated. There's things like the daily nudges and the tracking, which happen in an automated way. But when you need a human to be there for you, they're there. And they're there in a lot of different flavors and modalities that allow us to kind of match the level of human support that you desire and could really benefit from, with kind of great humans on the other side who are excited to work with you and to kind of help you reach your goals. And so I think, the thing that's really hard to duplicate is this vibrant and positive place that we've created for people to work on their drinking in a constructive way. A lot of these communities, like if you look on Reddit and some of the other forums out there, like they end up getting pretty dark pretty fast, right? It's a hard thing to be dealing with. And that often can lead to, spaces that feel a little bit negative or somber. And I think Sunnyside, our whole brand is about positivity. It's about kind of reorienting thinking towards positive psychology and supporting one another in finding joy on this journey. And I think that it's a really important, often overlooked part of this, which is this is something to celebrate. This is an investment that you're making in yourself to improve your life and to improve your relationships. And there's no shame in that. There's no stigma in that. And I think Sunnyside has done a really important job in completely flipping the narrative and the kind of ethos from one that is kind of baked in stigma towards one that's really about like, hell yeah, you hit your goal. That's amazing. Like, these are the small wins that I had this week, even if it wasn't perfect, right? It's about pulling out the nuggets that are working and doubling down on those and working to shift that frame and from like stigma to joy and celebration. And I think that's what we do uniquely well at Sunnyside. And you can see it in like our whole brand. Sunnyside is about brighter mornings. It's about waking up on the sunny side of the street and, living life to the fullest. And I think that really is attractive for a lot of folks who are kind of figuring out the path that they want to take on this journey.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah, I love the stigma thing around it because that's a big part of our podcast and what we're wanting to do with it. Remove stigma and not, like really be able to talk about it in a safe space without, feeling shamed about it. So I love that you guys focus so much on making it a positive thing for yourself.
Yeah, it's so important, and it's how we bring people in the door, right? This can be a really scary topic to get started on, and that's often why a lot of people wait to take that first step. And so if we can kind of eliminate all that noise and focus on what's important and kind of make this a health goal the same way that we celebrate losing weight and we celebrate new meditation journeys and we celebrate new fitness routines, celebrating new drinking routines is right there in the same conversation and has in many ways even more leverage to improve your overall health. Like, there's no reason we need to hide this away. And there's no reason we shouldn't be sharing on social media and talking about this of like, I cut my drinks in half and that's amazing and I'm happy about that. And look at all the ways that that's benefited me. I want to see more of that. I want to see this conversation really bubbling through in the popular wellness dialogue like we've seen with mental health and weight and nutrition and fitness and kind of all of the above. It's time for alcohol to take that same place in the proactive health conversation.
For sure. It should be seen that way. I mean, it's a good point that you have all these other things like, weight loss and stuff that people are okay doing it. I mean, there's TV shows around the whole idea of like, hey, let's get you into shape and everyone achieves a certain percentage of a goal. But yeah, it should be exactly the same way. And I think that's why apps like yours are great, because they're definitely habit forming. They're things where an individual could do it on their own, right? If they want, because they just have the app, they're monitoring their progression and stuff. And then there's also the fact that you mentioned you have that coaching with other, members that have graduated. So they get to understand what that experience was or what it's going to feel like going through the program. So yeah, that's great. And I know you guys been around for some time as well. So just curious, are there any like stats or data around how people do, how often they're in the program? If you could maybe share some of that with us.
Yeah, definitely. So the most exciting thing is this year we had our first independent third-party peer-reviewed study published in a journal called Alcohol, Clinical and Experimental Research. Sure. And we had a group of independent researchers look at the Sunnyside program and look at the data that we've collected over in an anonymized way, of course, but look at the data that we've collected over the last few years and kind of start to evaluate how effective we are at helping people change their relationship with alcohol. And the study was incredibly eye-opening and something we're really proud of. Sunnyside, on average, helps folks reduce their consumption by about 33% on average in the first 12 weeks of usage. And those effects are actually even more pronounced for folks that are on the heavier drinking side of the spectrum. So we're actually helping people that start at a higher level cut back even more. And people that are starting in kind of that moderate range, like cutting back by a third is a huge improvement.
Yeah.
We also help people to introduce, in a statistically significant way, we help people to introduce non-drinking days into their routines. And we see that the effects are kind of universal across the population of people that have kind of started to work with us. So we're really proud of that study. There's this kind of clear quantitative effectiveness that's now been demonstrated in a kind of third-party review. And then additionally, the thing that really motivates us and excites us is really the lifestyle benefits that our members are feeling. And so that's the thing that I think I'm actually almost more proud of in terms of we got the study, we've demonstrated that it works from a purely quantitative standpoint in terms of helping people change their habits. But more importantly, people are telling us 97% of people tell us that they're drinking less since joining Sunnyside. About 35% say that they've achieved a reduction of 50% or more. And so, we're seeing kind of massive benefits from a self-reported standpoint. Folks are telling us that they're seeing Sunnyside as essential to their ongoing health and wellness. Their mental health has improved. Their quality of sleep has improved. Their productivity in the workplace has improved. Their relationships have improved. We've got this data that is just showing that kind of when you realize how much of a keystone alcohol is in the broader picture of your lifestyle, I mean, the benefits are just completely profound.
It's a full cycle. It's like, a lot of people don't realize that until they stop drinking or lowering their consumption. It's like there's so many other areas that it starts benefiting in their lives. But that's awesome.
Yeah, and so we do these kind of regular member surveys just to kind of understand how people are perceiving the impact. Sleep, weight loss, appearance, mental health, and productivity are the benefits that folks are reporting. Massive majority of the population are feeling improvements in those areas. And it's really, really cool to see.
Yeah.
That's awesome, honestly. And somebody that went through it, I would agree. It has benefited all those things in my life. Nick, what would you say, what would be your recommendation for somebody that is kind of on the fence about is this something that I should do? Just on the fence about their drinking in general.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're on the fence, get started with Sunnyside, right? There's no reason not to start. So if you have that inkling, right? Again, if you have that idea that maybe I could benefit from making a change, that doesn't need to carry stigma, that doesn't need to carry shame, and there's no reason not to start, right? Yeah. If you have the inkling, it's probably true. It's almost certainly true that a change could really benefit you. And we provide a really, really easy way to get started and to benchmark where you're at, right? So even if you're not trying to make a dramatic change, if you're not trying to go totally sober, or if you're not kind of identifying as a problem drinker or someone that's, addicted to alcohol, if you have the inkling that you want to make a change, it's a really good idea to start to proactively understand where you are and to manage your consumption so that it doesn't, become a bigger problem down the road. And so I think for anyone who's on the fence, start is my advice, right? There's absolutely no reason not to start. Sunnyside is a starting point. certainly one that I recommend, but there's many other ways to get started. But the key is like bring awareness to your habits around alcohol. Start to observe yourself in the context of how you drink. And that the way to do that, I think, is tracking. It's seeing your kind of trends over time. It's understanding your patterns. It's trying to drink less or to not drink a little bit just to see how in control you are of those habits. And start by creating that benchmark. And then we'll help you kind of make the choice of, is moderation the right choice? Are you totally fine and go do it on your own? Which, many people do realize, like, they get to a good place with us and they decide that they can kind of graduate themselves out of the program. Or maybe you need a little bit more help, and we're kind of happy to kind of connect folks into, other services that might be a better fit. And so I think, like, open that door and take the first step.
Yeah.
And there's no reason not to, and it's never been easier to get started.
Yeah, just get started, right? That's the main answer. The longer you wait, the worse it could potentially get. If you need the support and help,
Yeah. It really speaks to this whole kind of like false binary too, right? Like in the societal perception of alcohol, there's like the alcoholic and then there's everybody else, right? And so like the idea that this is a binary, that like you have it or you don't, is just totally false, right? We know that alcohol use disorder is a spectrum condition. So there's people who are on the mild side of the spectrum, there are people who are on the severe side of the spectrum, and there's millions of people that fall in between, right? And so this is not something that like you have to diagnose yourself as a problem drinker before you get started, right? Like the earlier you get started, the easier it is to make a change and the easier it is to make a sustained change. And so like prevention should be the name of the game here.
Yeah.
And so it's not like you need to assume some identity of being an alcoholic to get started, right? It's something that many, many millions of people could really benefit from. And the labels aren't helpful in helping people get started ultimately.
Sure.
So know that it's not, you're not admitting some broken part of yourself. That's not a requirement to get started here.
Yeah.
And you'll find that there's so many people just like you that are on this journey. It's really empowering. And it's you only find that when you start, when you take the first step.
Exactly. So Nick, how can someone get started with Sunnyside? How does that work?
Yeah, so signing up is really easy. You can check us out at sunnyside.co or find us on the app stores, Sunnyside on both iOS and Android. Sign up takes about 5 minutes and we give a free trial for 15 days.
Right.
And then the experience itself is extremely approachable from a cost standpoint. Our base membership is $99 per year. And so for many of us, myself included, like we're saving way more than $100 a month by drinking a little bit less. And so the return on investment here couldn't be more obvious and clear. We've also got a higher touch kind of peer support layer. So if you want more help, if you want more human-to-human connection, that's available. But yeah, just go through the quiz and kind of get your benchmark and get your plan. And we can't wait to work with all of you.
That's perfect. I think 15-day trial right there speaks it all, right? Try it out.
Yep, exactly.
It's not going to hurt. Get started, 15 days, see how the app works for you. And I'm sure a lot of people will probably start seeing some sort of progression right early on.
You'll feel the benefits. And the most important thing in 2 weeks is you're not going to, it's not necessarily enough time to make a profound change and then, achieve your goals, but you'll start to feel the awareness that you're bringing to the habit. And that's the first step. And so I invite you all to check it out and to try, because that awareness is the most important starting point. And then you can decide if we're the right fit for you for the long term.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you, Nick, for joining us. This was really helpful. I think it was really great for, our listeners to kind of get an idea of other options that are out there. I think Sunnyside's a great option for a lot of individuals, and we definitely recommend people checking you guys out. But yeah, again, thanks for joining and take care.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to be here. Thank y'all.
Bye.